A dating double irony. Irony number one. During my high school years, between the year of 1975 to 1979, this is how it went down in my high school. If your score of attraction was below a 6 out of 10, boy, some, and I emphasize some of the girls in my high school made it very clear that your attraction score was definitely below 6 out of 10, and they had a whale of a time doing this. And judging by the feedback I got, I was definitely below a 6 out of 10 for sure, 100%. The irony with this is this negative feedback that I received from quite a few of the girls in my high school planted a seed for me to end up being the man that I am today, which is fitter than the average man and a man that has more confidence than the average man. Now, please don't misunderstand me. I am not saying that my attraction score is that above a 6 out of 10. That is not for me to declare. That is for you to make up your mind for yourself, because obviously I would appeal to some women but not appeal to all. But now that I'm 55 years old, the point of where I didn't really give a shit came roughly around my mid-20s, where that's when I really grew up and I realized, well, you know, to those I have value for, is for those I shall cherish and keep in mind. For those who I lack value for, I really couldn't give a shit. And it's been that way for 20 something odd years. Anyway, so that's irony number one. Now we arrive at irony number two. During the same time period between 1975, well, actually, I'll go a little bit further, from 1975 up to the late 80s. Maybe even slightly beyond that, actually. But definitely for so the peak of what I'm going to talk about was definitely mid-70s, definitely up to the late 80s. As many of you know, in the UK, during that time period, racism amongst indigenous whites was quite high. It was rife. And there were 3 London football teams that were known for its racist football fans. And growing up in London at the time, you had to make sure your black ass was nowhere near those football fans when they were playing in your part of London. Woe unto you if you were on the wrong train or the wrong bus. Talk about Stephen Lawrence. Well, may the Lord rest his soul. But like, I'm sure, well, you when I say Stephen Lawrence, many of you would know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's move on. So there's a twist in this irony now, with the racist atmosphere that was rife in that time period. Because touching on the irony number one, when a lot of the girls in my high school were having a whale of a time dissing me, especially some, and I emphasize the word some of the girls that hail from my parents' side of the world, which is Afro-Caribbean. For many of them, they were, some of them, shall I say, were having a whale of a time dissing me. During this time of overt racism, my first positive experience from females came from women that hail from countries that had, and still to a degree has, a reputation for being racist towards black people. This is the second irony. I will never forget the overcast Sunday afternoon when me and my friends were down in a place called South Bank, which was known for a skateboarder's mecca. It was very popular for skateboarding, and we were very heavily into skateboarding at the time. And it also had a high tourist attraction due to its location being very close to the Houses of Parliament and other landmarks around there. So I remember hanging there hanging out there, sitting on the wall, and there was a group of girls walking past, and we could tell by the way they were dressed and how they looked that they were foreigners, they were tourists. And amongst them, there was a girl with blonde, slightly curly hair, big blue eyes, and something happened that never happened to me before, and it totally shocked me. Bearing in mind my experience at high school, she stared at me, a very prolonged stare, followed by a warm, beaming smile, friendly smile. She smiled at me and she stared at me with a happy smile. I've obviously smiled back at her, but because this was something totally alien to me, I was embarrassed. I didn't know how to handle it, and I could feel my face changing. If I was white, I would have blushed, and out of embarrassment I slowly turned away, and I just didn't know how to handle it because I wasn't used to this overt positive attention. This group of girls passed us about 3 times, and all 3 times this same girl looked at me and smiled. I was only 14 years old. I didn't know how to approach women and chat them up, and this was something new to me. I was just used to being called ugly and stuff like that, so I didn't know how to handle this. And I noticed from that time onwards, every single time I was eyed up or smiled at, or any positive interaction that took place always came from women who hail from Europe, the continent. And they seem to hail from 4 countries, most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Spain, Italy, Germany, and in later years, Poland. And this is, again, with the irony, some of my most wonderful moments in my life